You've been taught that desire means absence, that if you want something, it's because you don't yet have it. So you start chasing. You chase courses, you chase rituals, you chase affirmations, hoping that somehow the effort will make reality move faster. But here's the truth, hiding in plain sight. Chasing doesn't create resonance, it creates noise. The more you sprint after what you want, the more your signal fractures, scattering into static that the field can't translate into form. Pause for a moment and notice how your body reacts when you think about something you long for. Does your chest tighten? Do your shoulders creep upward? Does your breath shorten? That's not just tension, it's frequency. It's the sound of strings pulled too tight, broadcasting urgency instead of ease. And in the quantum field, urgency is interference. It tells reality, I am separate from what I want. I am desperate to close the gap. But reality doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to coherence. Think of a tuning fork. Strike it once, and every fork of the same pitch across the room begins to hum without effort. No pleading, no pushing, just resonance. This is manifestation in its truest form, not trying harder, not layering more technique on top of old conditioning, simply becoming the match. The woman who journaled endlessly and filled shelves with crystals learned this the hard way. For years, her effort was actually proof to herself that she didn't yet have what she wanted. Each ritual declared, I must do more to earn what is already absent. Her frequency was effort. Her signal was lack. And so lack mirrored back. But on one unremarkable afternoon, she stopped. Not because she'd found a better method, but because she'd run out of steam, sitting in silence, her body unclenched, her breath deepened, and her nervous system shifted from doing into being. In that gap, resonance finally had room to surface. She didn't create abundance. She became available to what was already moving toward her. This shift, wanting versus wavelength, is subtle but seismic. Desire itself isn't wrong. Desire is how the field signals what's ready to be born through you. But when desire morphs into grasping, your body stiffens, and stiffness scrambles the signal. The key is to experience desire not as proof of lack, but as proof of connection. When a song plays on the radio and you recognize the tune, it doesn't mean the music wasn't there before. It means your receiver finally tuned to the right station. So here's the practice the next time you feel a wave of wanting rise. Don't rush to solve it. Don't reach for the next affirmation or quick fix. Instead, check your body. Where is tightness? Where is speed? Where is their hunger? Then soften, drop your shoulders, let your breath deepen, whisper silently. This desire is resonance already unfolding. Watch what happens when urgency dissolves into recognition. Because the truth is, you are not a beggar at the door of reality. You are the door. And the door only opens when you match the sound it's already humming. That's the mystery the ancients tried to explain with prayer, the mystics with surrender, and the physicists with frequency. You don't manifest by gripping, you manifest by tuning. And tuning is not effort, it's release. It's not straining the strings tighter, it's adjusting them until they sing in harmony with what already exists. Every dream you carry has a frequency. Every timeline where it's already fulfilled is broadcasting right now. You're not summoning something from nothing. You're stepping into the station where the song is already playing. Wanting tells you where to point the dial. Wavelength determines whether you actually hear the music. That's the shift this journey demands. Less chasing, more tuning. Less doing, more being. And it starts here, with your willingness to let desire be a signpost of connection instead of proof of lack. So breathe. Relax the grip. Feel the resonance humming beneath the noise of wanting. That's not absence. That's presence waiting for you to align. And as you continue, each section ahead will peel back another layer of interference, so you can hear the signal clearly and live it fully. You've probably been told that if you just think the right thoughts long enough, reality will eventually fall into line. Say it, picture it, repeat it, then watch your world transform. But how many times have you found yourself mouthing the words, visualizing the picture, and still feeling that gnawing emptiness? That gap between what you're saying and what you're actually experiencing isn't because you're failing. It's because thought alone is too thin a signal. The field doesn't just listen to what you think. It listens to what your whole system is broadcasting. And your system is more than your mind. It's your nervous system, your emotional tone, your subtle habits, your embodied identity. You can repeat, "I am abundant," 1,000 times. But if your chest still tightens, when you open your bank app, the broadcast is static. Think of coherence like the difference between a scattered flashlight beam and a focused laser. Both are light, but only one cuts cleanly through. Coherence is what happens when all levels of your being, mental, emotional, physical, line up in the same direction. It's when your words, your feelings, your posture, and your inner safety all hum together on the same pitch. And here's the kicker: coherence isn't about effort, it's about safety. When your nervous system feels safe, it lets go of hypervigilance. It drops the fight or flight static that keeps you bouncing between hope and doubt. A safe body broadcasts steadiness, and steadiness is what the quantum field responds to most directly. Take a simple example. Imagine two people sitting across from each other. One is straining, eyes wide, jaw clenched, repeating affirmations under their breath. The other sits quietly, shoulders relaxed, breathing evenly, radiating an easy confidence that what they need already belongs to them. Who do you think the world bends toward? It isn't about trying harder, it's about broadcasting clearer. Here's a test. Pause for a moment and place your hand on your heart. Whisper one thing you desire, not in a commanding tone, not in desperation, just as a gentle recognition. Then notice, does your body soften or stiffen? That reaction tells you whether you're in coherence or not. If you tighten, the signal is scrambled. If you relax, you're aligned. Most manifestation teachings ignore this subtle body truth. They assume you can override emotional residue with enough repetition. But your system doesn't work that way. Imagine a guitar string pulled too tight. It doesn't matter how many times you think play softer. The sound will remain sharp and strained until you actually loosen the tension. Your nervous system is that string. If it's wound in survival, no thought chant will shift the tune. So, what does create coherence? Familiarity. Your body trusts what it already knows. If wealth feels alien, your nervous system treats it like a threat. If love feels unfamiliar, it registers as danger. The practice, then, is to gradually normalize the states you want. Give your body safe, bite-sized experiences of abundance, love, or visibility until they stop feeling strange. It's not the grand visualization that makes the difference, it's the micro-adjustments that teach your system. This is safe, this is allowed, you can start today. Spend 5 minutes imagining not the grand finale, but the smallest detail of the reality you desire: a relaxed dinner paid for easily, a conversation where you feel fully seen, a morning where your body wakes rested. Anchor into that small, ordinary moment and let your body memorize it. That memory builds coherence because it feels possible, familiar, and safe. And this is the paradox when coherence locks in. You don't feel like you're manifesting at all. You're no longer straining, waiting, or hoping. You're simply being the version of yourself for whom that reality is normal. And in the quantum field, Normal is the most magnetic state of all. So stop trying to force the signal through sheer repetition. Instead, train your system to relax into coherence. Effort shouts, but it shouts with static. Coherence whispers, and the field leans in close to listen. As we move forward, we'll unravel what happens when your signal splits. When part of you says yes, while another part clings to the old familiar no. That's where interference patterns show up. And learning to clear them will sharpen your frequency even further. You've probably felt it before, those moments when you declare one thing with conviction, yet deep down another voice inside mutters the opposite. You say, "I'm ready for abundance," while part of you still clings to the comfort of scarcity. You affirm, "I want love," yet there's a thread of fear whispering, "It's safer alone." This split is not weakness, it's interference. And interference is the single greatest reason manifestations stall. Think of tuning into a radio station. When the dial is halfway between frequencies, all you get is static. You can hear faint fragments of the song, but it's drowned in noise. That's what happens when part of your system vibrates in alignment, while another part resists. The field receives a muddled broadcast and doesn't know which version to amplify. This is where many people misunderstand manifestation. They think more effort will drown out the doubt, more affirmations, more visualizations, more declarations. But effort piled on top of static doesn't create clarity, it actually amplifies the noise. Imagine shouting two songs at once. The clash doesn't produce harmony, it produces confusion. So what causes interference? Often, it's old conditioning buried so deeply you barely notice it. You may genuinely want abundance, but your nervous system has been trained by years of survival stress to associate money with conflict or loss. You may long for intimacy, but your body remembers vulnerability as danger. These hidden imprints create cross signals: desire in one direction, protection in the other. The first step to clearing interference is simply noticing where it lives. Here's a quick practice: write down one thing you're calling in. Now, instead of listing reasons you want it, list all the fears that quietly tag along. If I receive more money, people might expect too much of me. If I step into success, I might lose my friends. If I open to love, I could get hurt. Each of these is a fragment of static pulling your frequency off center. Awareness alone softens their grip. When you name the hidden fear, it stops running the show unconsciously. It becomes part of the signal you can consciously tune. This is not about rejecting the fear or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about integrating it, letting your system know, "Yes, I hear you," and it's safe now to shift. The second step is giving your body evidence that both halves can coexist until the resistance no longer needs to fight. For example, if part of you longs for visibility while another part fears judgment, practice being gently visible in low-stakes ways. Share one thought with a trusted friend. Speak up once in a small meeting. Each act shows your nervous system that visibility doesn't equal annihilation. Over time, the fear quiets and the signal clears. This is why chasing harder rarely works. If your field is riddled with interference, trying harder only locks in the static. But softening, acknowledging the cross-currents, gently rewiring them creates harmony. And harmony is what the quantum field reflects back. Remember, reality is exquisitely responsive. It mirrors not just what you shout, but what you whisper. Not just what you want, but what you fear. Clearing interference isn't about suppressing those whispers. It's about bringing them into coherence so that every layer of your being sings the same note. So, take inventory. Where in your life do you feel that tug of war between desire and doubt? Where do you sense the signal breaking into static? Don't judge yourself for it. Don't declare yourself broken. Simply notice. Awareness is already the first act of clearing. And here's the invitation instead of trying to drown out the interference with more effort. Sit with it. Ask, what safety do I need in order to release this often? What feels like resistance is really protection. And protection eases when it realizes you are strong enough to move forward. Because here's the deeper truth: you don't need to fight the interference. You only need to integrate it until all of you is facing in the same direction. That's when the music comes through. Clear and unmistakable. As we move to the next chapter, we'll expand this idea even further. Desire, it turns out, is not evidence of what's missing. It's evidence of connection. And when you see desire through the lens of entanglement rather than distance, you'll stop pushing and start allowing. Most people treat desire as proof of separation. I want this, therefore I don't yet have it. But what if desire is actually proof of closeness? What if the very longing you feel is not a signal of lack, but the vibration of something already connected to you, tugging at your awareness until you recognize it? In quantum science, there's a principle called entanglement. When two particles become entangled, they remain linked regardless of how far apart they appear. Shift one, and the other responds instantly, across miles or galaxies. They are not two separate things, they are one system expressing in different places. This isn't abstract theory, it's the perfect metaphor for your relationship with your desires. When you long for love, prosperity, or creative expression, you're not reaching for something foreign. You're feeling the pull of something already entangled with your consciousness. Desire is the universe's way of saying, look here, this is already part of you. The tension arises only when you misinterpret desire as absence rather than evidence of union. Think of magnets. Push them together the wrong way, and they resist, clattering apart. Flip them, align their poles, and they snap together with no effort. When you try to force your desires into being micromanaging the timing, the path, the outcome, you're pushing against the natural pull. That pressure feels exhausting because it fights the truth of connection. But when you relax into alignment, the magnetism takes over. What you want rushes to meet you, not because you chased it down, but because resonance leaves no gap. Here's a practice to explore. Take one of your strongest desires and reframe it as already entangled. Instead of saying, I want financial abundance, shift to, I'm entangled with abundance. I'm letting it reveal itself. Instead of, I want love, shift to, love is already woven into my field. I'm opening to its expression. Feel the difference in your body. Notice how the pressure to force eases when you see desire as connection. This perspective also explains why control blocks manifestation. The moment you grip tightly to how or when something must arrive, you imply separation. You say, it's out there, and I must chase it down. That very thought scrambles the resonance. Entanglement, by contrast, thrives on allowing. Two magnets don't argue about the schedule or negotiate the path, they simply meet when alignment allows. So let's make this tangible. Imagine you're calling in a new career opportunity. In the paradigm of distance, you might obsessively apply to dozens of positions, rehearse endless affirmations, and stalk the timeline, anxious for results. In the paradigm of entanglement, you still take action, but from a different state. You prepare not out of desperation, but as if you're making space for something already on its way. You polish your skills, yes, but you do it with the confidence that the opportunity is already linked to you. You align your daily rhythm with the identity of someone who belongs in that role. The action is the same, but the frequency behind it is entirely different. And here's the paradox: when you truly understand entanglement, you need less effort, not more, because every ounce of forcing is actually resistance. What feels like control is often fear in disguise, the fear that you're not already connected to what you want. Letting go of that illusion isn't passivity, it's intelligence. It's recognizing that magnets attract, tuning forks resonate, and entangled particles move as one without needing your micromanagement. So, the next time you feel yourself grasping for a desire, ask, am I treating this as distant or entangled? Am I pushing against it like mismatched poles? Or am I letting it click naturally into place? That single reframing can dissolve years of struggle. Because you don't attract what's alien, you reveal what's already linked. You don't manifest by pulling reality closer, you allow reality to align with the truth that you and your desire were never apart. And from this recognition, the doorway opens into something even bigger, the ability to select timelines. Because if every possibility already exists, and if desire is proof of entanglement, then the real art is choosing which version of reality you will inhabit. That's where we go next. If you've ever felt stuck in loops, same struggles, same outcomes, it's not because reality is against you. It's because your consciousness keeps tuning into the same channel. In the quantum view, every possible outcome already exists. There's a version of you thriving in love, another in abundance, another in deep peace. These aren't imaginary, they're parallel tracks, already playing. The question isn't whether they exist. The question is, which one are you selecting with your state of being? Timeline selection sounds abstract, but it's simpler than you think. Imagine reality as a massive radio tower broadcasting countless stations. Each station is a version of your life, one filled with struggle, one with flow, one with brilliance. Your consciousness is the dial. Wherever you set it, that's the music you hear. But here's the key, you can't just demand a new station with your mind. You have to embody the frequency that belongs to that station. So what does this look like in daily life? Say you want to step into the timeline of financial ease. You can picture overflowing bank accounts all day. But if your habits still scream scarcity, hoarding pennies, stressing at every purchase, your dial is set to the scarcity station. The timeline you tune to is revealed by the signals of your actions, feelings, and nervous system tone. Timeline shifts happen when you adjust those micro signals. Instead of living as someone trying to escape lack, you live as someone who already belongs to abundance. That doesn't mean reckless spending, it means embodying calm confidence with money. It could be as small as buying a meal without guilt, or pausing before you react to a bill with fear. Each micro-choice reinforces the station you're tuned into. Here's a simple exercise, design a timeline rehearsal day. Choose one desire: health, love, purpose, and ask, how would the version of me on that timeline move through today? Then make micro-choices in alignment with that answer. If it's health, maybe you choose a nourishing meal with gratitude rather than dread. If it's love, maybe you speak kindly to yourself in the mirror. If it's purpose, maybe you spend 15 minutes on a passion project instead of scrolling. These small shifts matter because the field doesn't respond to your occasional flashes of inspiration. It responds to your dominant frequency. And your dominant frequency is built moment by moment, habit by habit, breath by breath. Each micro-choice is like adjusting the radio dial a little closer to the station you want. With enough adjustments, the static clears, and suddenly you're fully immersed in the new timeline. The beauty of this approach is that it takes manifestation out of the clouds and roots it in lived reality. You're not trying to conjure something distant. You're training your system to recognize and inhabit what's already here. The abundance timeline doesn't need you to force it into existence. It needs you to stop broadcasting scarcity long enough for its music to play. And here's where coherence and entanglement join forces. Your desires point to the timeline that's already linked to you. Coherence sets your signal steady. Timeline rehearsal bridges the gap through action. Together, they create the conditions where the field has no choice but to collapse reality around your chosen state. Think of it this way: when you embody a frequency, you're not waiting for the timeline to prove itself. You're proving it through how you live. You're not saying, "I'll believe it when I see it." You're saying, "I'll live it until it becomes obvious." And in the quantum field, that's enough to collapse possibility into fact. So ask yourself right now, which station have you been tuned into by default? Which timeline are your daily micro-choices reinforcing? If you don't like the answer, don't despair. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to begin turning the dial, one small act at a time. Because when you truly grasp timeline selection, you stop waiting for some future day to arrive. You realize every choice is a doorway, every breath is a broadcast, and the reality you most desire is already humming, waiting for you to step into its song. Next, we'll move from theory into practice. You'll learn a simple, repeatable ritual that trains your system to recognize what's already here, so resonance becomes second nature. Up to this point, you've seen that chasing creates static, coherence clears the signal, and timeline rehearsal brings the new reality closer. But how do you anchor this in a way your nervous system can actually recognize, repeat, and trust? That's where the recognition protocol comes in. Think of it as a reset sequence, not to force manifestation, but to tune your system into what's already true. The recognition protocol isn't complicated. It's not hours of chanting or memorizing exotic rituals. It's 5 simple steps that train your body to notice where the resonance of already having exists right now, instead of obsessing over what seems missing. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Step 1: stillness. Find 5 minutes where you can simply sit. No goals, no multitasking, just be. Let your breath find its rhythm. The purpose isn't to empty your mind, but to soften the static enough that you can hear what's underneath. Stillness is the gateway to recognition, because without slowing down, you'll miss the subtle signal that abundance is already here. Step 2: select desire. Bring one desire to mind, not the grand mountain of your life's vision, but one strand of it. Maybe financial ease, maybe love, maybe health. Hold it gently, like a feather in your hand, without trying to shape it. Just acknowledge, this is alive in me. That acknowledgement alone is proof of connection. Step 3: feel the quality. Instead of imagining the object itself, a car, a partner, a sum of money, focus on the quality it represents. Abundance might feel like security, ease, or freedom. Love might feel like warmth, presence, or belonging. Health might feel like vitality, energy, or calm. Identify the emotional texture behind the desire. Step 4: locate what's already here. Here's the shift. Rather than straining to generate these feelings, scan your life for where they already exist. Where are you already safe, already loved, already vital? Maybe it's the roof over your head, the friend who texts to check in, or the simple fact that your lungs are filling right now with breath. Let your nervous system notice the quality you long for isn't absent. It's present in seed form, waiting to expand. Step 5: anchor and amplify. When you spot even the smallest evidence, pause, breathe into it. Let your shoulders drop. Whisper silently, this is it. Stay with that feeling for a few breaths longer than feels natural. This isn't about hype or adrenaline, it's about familiarity. You're teaching your body that this frequency is safe, normal, already yours. Over time, your system begins to prefer this signal, broadcasting it more steadily into the field. That's the recognition protocol. Simple, repeatable, and powerful because it flips the script instead of declaring what's missing. You're recognizing what's present. Instead of chasing, you're receiving. And the more your nervous system recognizes this state, the more coherent your broadcast becomes. Think of it like learning to play an instrument. At first, the chords feel awkward, but repetition builds muscle memory. Soon, your hands know where to go without thinking. The recognition protocol builds emotional memory. Your body learns how it feels to be abundant, loved, or whole, until those frequencies become your default. And when they're your default, the field mirrors them with precision. Here's an experiment for the next 7 days. Practice the recognition protocol once a day. Don't treat it like another chore on your spiritual to-do list. Treat it like brushing your teeth, ordinary, essential, automatic. At the end of the week, notice what shifts, not just in external events, but in how your body feels when desire arises. You'll likely find less urgency, less static, more ease. That shift is the first sign of resonance doing its work. The beauty of this protocol is that it doesn't depend on perfect focus or years of training. It depends only on your willingness to notice what's already true. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to realize that manifestation was never about earning something distant. It was always about recognizing what's already entangled with you. Now that you've built a practice for recognition, the next challenge is safety. Because often, the real block isn't whether you can tune into the frequency, it's whether your system feels safe staying there. That's where we turn next. You've learned how to recognize resonance, but here's the hidden obstacle most people overlook: safety. Not whether the practice works, but whether your nervous system feels secure enough to let it stay. Because the truth is, your body will never stabilize a frequency it perceives as dangerous. Think about it. You may say you want wealth, but if your childhood memories link money to arguments, betrayal, or loss, your system quietly concludes wealth equals risk. You may affirm you're ready for love, but if intimacy once led to rejection or pain, your body whispers love equals exposure. These imprints don't vanish because you think differently. They live in the nervous system, guarding you like overprotective sentinels. This is why many people sabotage manifestations without realizing it. They begin to embody abundance, but suddenly procrastinate on opportunities. They attract affection, but push it away when it gets too close. The interference isn't laziness or failure, it's protection. Your body is saying, I'd rather stay with the discomfort I know than risk the unknown that feels unsafe. So the next frontier of resonance isn't scale, it's safety. Before the field can mirror expansion, your system must believe expansion won't destroy you. This means healing the link between desire and danger. Here's how you begin remap the association. Instead of forcing yourself into giant leaps, introduce your system to micro doses of the frequency you want. If wealth feels unsafe, start with small acts of financial ease. Buy yourself a coffee without guilt. Transfer a few dollars into savings with pride. Notice how your body relaxes when you pay a bill calmly. Each small success teaches your system that abundance isn't a threat. If love feels unsafe, practice safe micro-connections. Let someone hold the door for you. Accept a compliment without deflecting. Send a kind message with no agenda. These tiny acts reassure your body intimacy can be safe. If visibility feels unsafe, start by sharing one authentic thought in a small circle rather than exposing yourself to a massive stage. You don't need to hurl yourself into the spotlight. You need to show your system that light can feel gentle, not blinding. Safety before scale means your growth doesn't collapse under its own weight. Think of building a bridge. If the foundation isn't solid, adding more traffic only makes it crumble. But when the structure is anchored, expansion becomes effortless. Here's a practice to try when you visualize your desire. Notice the first flicker of discomfort that arises. Maybe your stomach knots, your chest tightens, or your breath quickens. Instead of pushing through, pause. Place a hand on your body where you feel it and whisper, "You're safe here." Stay until the sensation softens. You're training your system to link expansion with calm instead of threat. Another key is to redefine safety itself. Safety doesn't mean nothing changes. Safety means you can handle what comes. Often, we wait for circumstances to guarantee safety before we step forward. But true safety is internal, the trust that you can meet whatever arises with steadiness. As you build this trust, expansion no longer feels like leaping off a cliff. It feels like walking across a bridge that strengthens under your feet with every step. And the field responds not to your ambition, but to your steadiness. It mirrors not your craving, but your capacity to hold what arrives. So ask yourself, does your body feel safe with the reality you're calling in? If not, what micro step could prove to your system that it is? Remember, the quantum field doesn't need scale to respond, it needs coherence. Safety creates coherence, and coherence opens the floodgates for scale. Once you've established safety, the next step is rehearsal. Not imagining the life you want, but practicing living it in real time, training your system to treat it as familiar. That's where embodiment becomes the key. Visualization has its place, but here's the hard truth. Your body doesn't fully believe pictures alone. You can see yourself in the mansion, in the relationship, in the new career. But if your nervous system has no lived reference for that state, the images remain flat. The field responds to embodiment, not imagination. That's why rehearsal is more powerful than daydreaming. Embodiment rehearsal means you stop waiting for the future version of yourself to arrive. Instead, you begin living pieces of that reality now through micro-behaviors, speech patterns, and posture shifts. You show your body what it feels like to already belong there. When your system collects enough evidence, it stops resisting. The frequency becomes normal. Here's how to start. Pick one desire you're calling in. Then ask, how would the version of me who already lives this reality move? Speak. And decide, don't think in grand leaps. Think in micro details. If your desire is abundance, maybe you practice walking into a store without the reflex of scanning prices first. Not recklessly, just calmly, with trust. If your desire is love, maybe you rehearse speaking to yourself in the mirror with the tenderness you'd offer a partner. If your desire is confidence, maybe you practice entering a room with shoulders relaxed, breathing deep, greeting people as if your presence already matters. Each act seems small, but together they rewire identity. The field doesn't respond to declarations like, "Someday I'll be abundant." It responds to the embodied broadcast of someone who already lives abundance, even in micro form. Here's a short exercise. 1. Choose a scenario your future self experiences daily, like making a decision, starting a morning, or greeting someone new. 2. Rehearse it now. Act it out. Speak the words. Adjust your posture. Let your nervous system feel the new baseline. 3. Notice any resistance tension, awkwardness, guilt. Instead of shutting it down, thank it. That's your system revealing where old programming still lingers. Stay gentle until the resistance loosens. 4. Repeat until the rehearsal feels less like pretending and more like remembering. This practice builds emotional muscle. At first, It might feel strange, even artificial, but so did riding a bike before balance kicked in. Embodiment rehearsal is how you give your system balance in a new frequency. It's how you transform the extraordinary into the ordinary, because the field delivers more of what feels ordinary than what feels extraordinary. Think of an athlete preparing for a championship. They don't just visualize the moves, they run drills, repeat routines, practice under pressure until their body performs without hesitation. Manifestation works the same way. You rehearse being the person who naturally belongs in the reality you desire, so that when it arrives, your system doesn't panic or sabotage it, simply continues. The trap most people fall into is thinking embodiment rehearsal is fake. But it isn't pretending it's training. It's no different from rehearsing lines before a play. The rehearsal doesn't make you a liar. It makes you ready. And readiness is the frequency the field loves most. Here's the paradox: the more you embody, the less you crave. The more you rehearse, the less desperate you feel. Because your nervous system begins to accept, this is who I am. This is already my state. And when the craving dissolves, resonance sharpens, and reality has room to catch up. So give yourself permission to practice being, not trying, not grasping, being. Choose one small rehearsal every day until the frequency feels natural. Over time, those small rehearsals build into an identity shift that no amount of mental affirmations could create. Because manifestation isn't about acting as if someday you'll arrive. It's about rehearsing until arrival feels redundant. You're already there. And from this embodied place, the field can't help but respond. Next, we'll expand beyond the personal. Once you've stabilized embodiment, your signal doesn't just shape your reality, it contributes to the collective field. And that means your coherence becomes more than personal gain. It becomes part of the larger resonance humanity can tune into. Up to now, we've focused on you, your resonance, your safety, your rehearsal. But here's the part that changes everything. Your signal doesn't stop at your skin. It ripples outward, weaving itself into the larger field we all share. And that means your coherence isn't just personal progress, it's contribution. Think of how one steady instrument can bring an entire orchestra into tune. When a violinist holds a clean note, the other players naturally adjust, aligning with the pitch. Your frequency works the same way. The steadier you become in abundance, peace, or love, the easier it is for those around you to access the same states. Not because you're preaching at them, but because your resonance clears local static. You've felt this before. Walking into a room where one person radiates calm, and suddenly everyone else settles. Or meeting someone whose joy is so genuine, it feels contagious. That isn't charisma. It's physics. Nervous systems are wired to sync. The quantum field magnifies that effect. Your coherence quietly gives others permission to find theirs. This is why manifestation is never selfish. When you embody abundance, you don't steal it from others. You expand the station of abundance so more people can tune in. When you embody love, you don't hoard it, you broadcast it, making it easier for others to feel safe in intimacy. Your resonance adds options to the field. Every time you collapse a timeline of possibility into lived reality, you widen the doorway for collective consciousness to walk through. So the question shifts. Are you broadcasting confusion or clarity, scarcity or sufficiency, fear or trust? Whatever you stabilize in yourself becomes easier for the people around you to experience. This is the hidden power of personal practice. It multiplies impact without needing words. Here's a practice to anchor this the next time you feel settled, in resonance, whether after meditation, rehearsal, or simple gratitude. Pause before you move on. Imagine your signal extending 3 feet around you, like a subtle glow, as you walk through your day. Let that glow remain. You don't need to say anything. Just carry the coherence. Notice how interactions change. You may find conversations soften, synchronicities appear, or even strangers treat you with unexpected kindness. That's the field responding, through others. Another layer of field contribution is how you respond to turbulence. When others broadcast panic, judgment, or scarcity, do you join the noise or do you remain a clear signal? Every time you refuse to amplify static, you're performing an act of service. You're holding the station steady so others can recalibrate. This doesn't mean tolerating harm or silencing yourself. It means embodying clarity even in the midst of chaos. Here's the paradox. The more you contribute coherence, the less you need to convince. People feel it before they understand it. Words may fade, but resonance lingers. This is why the most powerful teachers often say little. Their field does the teaching. So ask yourself, what quality do I want to broadcast? Not just for me, but for the collective. Is it abundance, peace, courage, love? Each time you embody it, you're not only shifting your timeline, you're adding strength to the global frequency of that state. That's how movements begin. Not with slogans, but with resonance. And remember, you don't need to be perfect. Even a few seconds of coherence ripple outward. The field doesn't require saints. It responds to sincerity. Each time you catch yourself before spiraling into static and return to clarity, you create a stabilizing wave. So when you practice manifestation, you're not just crafting your personal story, you're joining a collective symphony, deciding which songs become easier for humanity to hear. That's why this work matters, because your resonance is never only yours. And now we arrive at the myths, the old stories that fracture coherence and keep people locked in effort instead of ease. To move fully into resonance, you'll need to dismantle those illusions and replace them with cleaner signals. That's where we go next. Every teaching about manifestation carries with it inherited myths, old scripts passed down through culture, religion, and survival. These myths are sticky because they sound wise, but they generate static in your frequency. If you want resonance, you must name them, dismantle them, and replace them with cleaner signals. Story 1. Good things take time. This one feels noble. It whispers that patience proves virtue, that waiting is evidence of worth. But in the quantum field, time is not a straight line, it's a lens. Manifestations don't delay because reality is slow. They delay because your willingness to embody is uneven. Replace this myth with good things take alignment. Instead of rehearsing scarcity while you wait, step into resonance now. The timeline shifts at the speed of coherence, not the calendar. Story 2. You must suffer to grow. So many of us were taught that pain is the price of wisdom, that struggle is the badge of honor. Yet challenge doesn't have to equal suffering. Growth can arrive through joy, ease, and creativity just as powerfully as through hardship. Replace this myth with, you must stretch to grow. Stretching is sometimes uncomfortable, but it is not torment. When your system learns that expansion can feel playful instead of punishing, it no longer resists your desires. Story 3. Material desires are less spiritual. This myth splits your frequency. It tells you peace and wisdom are holy, but wealth or beauty are shallow. Yet the same field that manifests serenity also manifests money, art, and laughter. Everything is consciousness expressing itself in form. Replace this myth with all desires are spiritual explorations. Abundance, intimacy, creativity. Each one is consciousness knowing itself through you. There is no hierarchy. There is only resonance. Story 4. If it's meant for you, it will happen effortlessly, so don't want too much. This myth disguises passivity as wisdom. It tells you wanting is dangerous. That effort itself is a flaw. But desire is not greed, it's guidance. You are not here to sit quietly and accept scraps. You are here to collaborate with creation. Replace this myth with, what's meant for me requires my participation. Not effort in the form of forcing, but participation in the form of alignment, choice, and rehearsal. The field loves partners, not passengers. Story 5. Manifestation is selfish. This one wounds the deepest because it shames you for desiring. But as we've seen, when you embody resonance, you don't hoard, you broadcast. Your abundance creates pathways for others. Your peace settles rooms. Your courage ripples through the field. Replace this myth with my manifestation serve the collective. Every fulfilled desire expands the range of what humanity can access. Your wholeness is not theft, it's contribution. Now pause and feel which of these stories has had the strongest grip on you, which one still hums in the background of your signal. Naming it is the first act of release. Then gently replace it with the cleaner story, repeating it not as an affirmation but as recognition. Whisper it to your body until it feels safe to believe. This is how you dissolve interference, not by fighting the old stories, but by offering your system new evidence. Over time, the myths lose their charge and your frequency clears. And when the static fades, resonance becomes natural. So take inventory. Which myth is ready to be retired today? Which replacement story will you practice living? Because the field is already listening. It doesn't wait for perfection. It responds to direction. And now, with these myths dismantled, we've reached the point where effort gives way to ease. Striving gives way to resonance. The journey ahead isn't about adding more, it's about softening into what's always been yours. That's where we'll close. In a wind down that brings everything together, gently, into wholeness. Take a breath. Let everything you've traveled through settle into the body. You've seen how chasing creates static, how coherence clears the channel, how rehearsal and safety stabilize the signal, and how dismantling myths removes interference. But beneath all of it, the essence remains simple. You are not separate from what you seek. Every longing is evidence of entanglement. Every desire is a signal already woven into your field. The universe isn't holding your dreams at arm's length, testing you, or waiting for you to prove worth. It's humming the song of your fulfillment right now, and your only task is to tune, not by trying harder, but by being steadier. This is why surrender is not weakness, it's resonance. When you unclench your grip, the magnets align. When you soften into safety, timelines shift. When you rehearse embodiment, your system begins to treat the extraordinary as ordinary. And once it feels ordinary, the field mirrors it with ease. Remember, your signal isn't just personal, it contributes to the larger field. Every time you choose coherence over static, you make it easier for others to tune into the same song. Your abundance doesn't deplete theirs. Your peace doesn't diminish theirs. Your resonance amplifies possibility for everyone. So as you leave this journey, take one step, just one. That anchors the frequency you've chosen. Maybe it's a breath before a decision. Maybe it's a small purchase without guilt. Maybe it's allowing yourself to receive kindness without flinching. Each small act is a declaration to the field. This is who I am now. Let this closing be less about striving and more about remembering. Remembering that you are already whole, that what you want already wants you. That manifestation isn't effort, it's resonance. Carry this truth gently into your day. You are the tuning fork, the magnet, the lighthouse. You don't need to chase. You only need to hum your note clearly. and let reality rise to meet you.